Okay, we'll let you know about the timetable of the practicals as well as theory later. As of now, the online timetable, what we are following, that holds good. Okay, yes. Okay, let us summarize the while loop, the working of the while loop in a diagram. Okay, let's see here. Just put up one particular diagram here. Take a 1 minute and just look into the content of that, what is there, and then I will just repeat, or I will try to explain the while loop over here. This will be a repetition for the students who have missed out the while loop concepts, or to those who don't understand, who have not understood it completely. Okay, this particular diagram will help you in understanding the execution flow of while loop. Just look into the diagram. There are different numbers given. What that numbers means? The flow of execution. Okay, sequentially you have to start from 1 up to the last number. How the flow goes. Okay, and at the same time there is a syntax as well. Syntax means the while, all are in lowercase, then there is a open and close brackets. Within that we have a condition, right? And then a pair of flower brackets. That is the minimum requirement of a while loop, right? So go through that one, and then I will explain you how the, once again, I will explain you the concept of while loop here. If we put those also 3A, 3B. Okay, understood? Any difficulties you have there?
No. Sir, explain once again, sir.
Yes, I will do that. Okay, now the entry point is where the while word, right? This is a keyword. So once the control reaches the while, that is the first step. The second step is what? The condition evaluation, right? It will go into the condition, then it will try to evaluate the condition. Evaluation means it will try to find out the result of that. And we know that that condition will give us a result in the form of true or false. Means only two possibilities are there. Means that's why there are two branches taken from there, 3.A and 3.B. 3.A means if the condition is true, 3.B means if the condition is false. Okay, now assume that if it is a condition is a true, that is 3.A. Once 3.A, that is condition, becomes true, then it will enter into the while loop. So enter into the while loop means the within the flower brackets, the number of statements will be there. It could be one statement or it could be many statements. All those statements will be executed line by line. That is starting from the top up to the bottom part. All the statements will be executed. And you can see that the last statement before the closing flower bracket, there is one word is there, updation, right? What actually we mean by that updation? Can anyone tell me? Printing the statement? No, it is not printing the statement. Yes.
That's incrementing or decrementing.
Incrementing or a decrementing.
Incrementing or decrementing.
Yes, very good. That is counter variable. We might have taken some counter, right, in the initial part where initialization was done, right? That particular variable we can increment or decrement based upon our program logic, right? That is something we need to remember. If you don't have that particular statement, that is updation statement, then there is a chance that the program will go into an infinite loop. Okay, now once that updation is done, the flower bracket ending is done, then where does the control goes back to? It goes back to again the condition. Then again the condition will be validated. Now we know that again condition can have a true or a false values. If it is a true, then what will happen? The same steps will be repeated. That is, it will enter into the while loop, then it will execute all the statements up to the updation, and then again it will come back to the while condition. The condition again will be verified. If it is true, again it will follow that one. Now suppose at any instant, if the condition becomes false, then Where does the control goes back to? Outside the while loop. It will go outside the while loop. Until and unless the condition is true. If the condition is true, all the statements inside the while loop will be repeatedly executed. And once the condition becomes false, the control will skip and it will come out of the for loop, and the remaining statements outside the for loop will be executed. Okay? Understood, students? Online students, any doubts?
No, sir.
No.
Okay. So let us today go to the next control structure for the looping statements. Okay. How many looping statements are there? How many looping statements are there? 3. What are those? Do you remember the examples I had given you at the beginning, couple of classes before? We have classified the looping statement into 2 parts or 2 categorization. One is entry controlled and second one is exit controlled. Entry controlled and exit controlled. So this entry controlled, we have 2 examples. Do you remember anyone? Online students, do you remember?
While and for.
While and for. While and for are the entry controlled, and the example for exit controlled?
Do while.
Do and while.
Do while loop, right? So among these 3, we have covered up the first part, that is while loop, that is entry controlled. Why do we call it to be a entry controlled here? Look into that particular diagram and tell me how we can or why we can call this particular looping structure as entry controlled. I hope at least you understand. Entry control means the control, the flow of execution will be monitored or will be it will be controlled at the entry of the or at the beginning phase of the looping structure. So where is that particular statement? How you can specify that it is the entry controlled? Suppose for the first time, if the condition is false, what will happen? Does it enter into the while loop?
No, sir.
No, sir.
For the first time, if the
No, sir.
condition itself is a false, will it enter into the statements of the while loop? No,
No,
it
sir.
will not enter. If it is true, then it will enter, right? The statements inside the while loop will execute depending upon the condition, which is checked at the beginning. At the beginning means before executing any of the statements inside the while, first the condition will be checked. If then only you proceed with execution, otherwise don't go at all. So where is that validation is happening? Where is that checking happening? Is it at the beginning or is it something at the end? At the beginning. At the beginning means can we call it to be an entry time? Right? So the for loop, this particular while loop will work if the condition is true at the beginning, then the statements will be executed. If the conditions are false, then the statements will not be executed. So we call it to be a entry controlled. The control here is for the condition where we are checking that particular condition before the body of the while loop or after the body of the looping statement. Since the validation is done before the body of the while loop, so we call it to be a entry controlled looping structure. Okay, now as I explained earlier that there is one more looping structure which we call it to be a exit controlled, right? And the example for that is the do while loop. Okay, the syntax I will put it over here first. The syntax is like this. Do is the keyword. Okay, and then after do there is an open bracket, then close bracket. This open bracket and close bracket indicates the body of looping structure, Body of looping structure means the statements which we need to execute, like statement 1, statement 2. I'm just writing in a short words here, statement 1, statement 2, up to we can have n number of statements, right? We can have n number of statements. It is not that we need to have only multiple statements. We can have even one statement there as well. Okay. And then there should be one statement for updation, right? We need to do that particular updation, that is either increment or decrement. Okay. Now, notice here, there is a do keyword, and then the flower bracket opens, then the statements are there, and then there is a close bracket. Since we are talking about certain looping, means there should be certain condition. We need to validate the condition, right? That condition will be placed here at the end. At the end means after writing this closing flower brackets, there will be another keyword called as a while, and this particular while will take a condition now. And this particular condition will be validated. And after this bracket, after the condition, there is a semicolon. This is the syntax of do while loop. Do these things and then check for the condition. How we need to remember this one? Do while loop. Do all these statements means execute all these statements and then go for verifying the condition. Now again the same concept here. If this particular condition is true, what has to be done? We should again enter into the loop, means
Body of while.
the body of the while loop. All these statements have to be again executed. Once the execution is completed, all the statements, then again the while is there. After while, we have this condition here in the while. Then verify the again condition. If this condition is true again, then what has to be done? Again, the statements have to be executed starting from here. So now, are you getting the difference between this while and do while now? Now in do while, what is happening? How it is different syntactically? Initially, we have a keyword called as a do. This is our first phase. In the first phase, do, and then all these statements will be executed up to the updation statements. Once that is done, then there is a while, right? In the while, we have a condition. This condition now it will be evaluated. If this condition is true, then again start from the body of the do while, that is all these statements you execute. If the condition is all these execute and then again verify the condition. If it is true, then again execute. If it is false, then skip the do while statements and then come out of that and then execute the remaining statements. Okay, now let me put it in a diagram here so that you can understand it better. Is something previously which I designed here. Let's take this and understand here. Okay, now this is how the do while loop will work. In a pictorially we can represent like this. Now initially we have first step, that is do, correct? Then the body of the looping statement here that starts from the opening flower bracket and ends at the closing flower bracket. Between these, whatever statements are there, those statements will be executed sequentially, one after the other. And you can notice there, before this flower bracket closing, there is an updation. Updation means again, it is something, a statement representing increment or decrement operator or any other operator where we modify the conditions values. Okay. And then the while keyword, and it takes a condition, right? Then depending upon the condition result, either it can, if it is a true, then you do the same step execution. If the condition is true, then it comes again, execute all the statements. If the condition is false, come out of the do while. Following? Yes? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, write a program and try to understand the do while loop, and then we will try to understand the difference between the while as well as do while. Now you might be having a doubt here. Sir, there is a while loop already. It does the pretty much work. The same type of even do while here. We are repeating the some subset of statements to be executed until the condition is true. Once the condition is false, those statements will be skipped. Then what is the major difference between the while and do while? That we will cover up later after taking up the programs or the examples. Okay, now let us go to the programs and write hash include stdio.h int main return 0 and then closing bracket. Okay. Let's save the program first. Give the number as 26 here, and it is do while dot c. Okay. Now, let us print the numbers from 1 to 10. Let us take the same example. Print numbers from 1 to 10. Okay. Then we require some variables here. How many variables we require here? We want to print the numbers from 1 to 10. How many variables are required? Do we need to read any values? Do we need to ask user to enter any values, any numbers?
Yes, sir.
What we want to ask? Think here, do we really need a value from the user? No, we don't require, right? We need to print what? 1 to 10. We do know the initial value, that is 1. We also know the ending number, that is 10. So there is nothing that we need to ask from the user, right? So, but we need one variable for increment or decrement, that is counter. So declare one variable as counter here. Okay. Now, what will be the initial value of the counter?
1.
1.
1. We need to print from 1, right? So it should be 1. Counter is 1. Okay. Then, so let us print one statement. Print f numbers between 1 and 10. Numbers between 1 and 10. I'm just printing it. Then I need to write the do while loop. So the syntax is what? Do, then open flower bracket, corresponding closing flower bracket, and after closing flower bracket, what do we need to write here? While, and then the condition I need to prepare, and what else? Semicolon, right? This is something you need to remember. In the while loop, after writing the while and condition, we don't put the semicolon. But in the do while loop, we write the do and then write the body of the do while, and after writing the while condition, semicolon is a must. If you don't write the semicolon, then compiler will give error. Okay. Now what we need to construct here is that two things. One is the statements which have to be written inside the do while and the condition. Correct? Now what we need to do here, we need to print the values, right? Where that particular values are stored in which particular variable? It is stored in the counter variable. So a simple once printf statement, printf, right? The counter. %d/n, then counter. Will that print the number which is stored in the counter variable? Yes or no? Then
Yes, sir.
updation, right? Updation means increment or any type of the statements here. So what updation value we need to write here? What type of expression or the statement we need to write?
I++.
I plus plus, but there is no
Counter plus plus.
counter
plus
plus.
plus.
It is counter plus plus. Counter plus plus. Okay. Then, so the first part we have taken care, that is the looping statements and the updation statement. And then we need to come and then write our condition here. Now, what will be the condition? Up to where we need to print the numbers? 10.
Counter is smaller than
counter
smaller than 10.
10, we need to print. Once
smaller than or equal to 10.
Greater than 10, we have to stop it. So correspondingly, the statement will be what? Counter and
smaller than or equal to
10. Counter
10
or equal to 10. Okay. Yes. Understood this one?
Sir, increment counter spelling, sir.
What happened here, right? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Let us try to compile the program. CD, C programs, and the program number here is 26. GCC 26. Okay, no errors. Just run the program. Yes, it pretty much displays the number from 1 to 10. Okay, now I hope till this particular point the program is understood. Online students, any doubts here?
No, sir.
No, right? Now, suppose if I write like this, what I have done here, the initial value of the counter I have modified as 11. Initial value of the counter I have modified as 11. Okay. Now, what will be the output here? Can anyone tell me? It will not enter the do while loop. Okay. Any other answers? One of your friend here said that it will not enter into the do while loop. Okay. Any other answers?
Sir, no output will be displayed.
No output will be displayed. Okay. It will show error. What type of error? Syntax error, logical error? Logical error. Okay. Then, okay, fine. Now, we know this thing. We know how do while loop work, right? Online students, we know how this particular do while loop works, the flow of execution. Let us try to apply to this particular program here. Okay. So entry point is what? Step number 1 here is what? Do. Okay. Then it will enter into the looping statements. What is the first statement? Will it enter into the do while loop here? See. Okay. Let's start from the scratch here. Okay. So when we execute the program will start from what? Main function. Right? In the main function, this is the opening bracket. So the statements will start executing from here. Okay. First, let us check, as some of you said that there will be some errors. Okay. Let us check whether there will be any compilation error or not. I will just compile the program. I will not do anything else. Just compile the program. I just compiled. There are no errors. Okay. Now let us go back here. Okay. 1 second. The students, offline students, is that text visible to you? Because is that black screen is causing some problem? It's too light. Okay. In the probably next class, I will make it a white background. Okay. Yes. Now. Okay. So now we know that the program execution starts from main. Okay. Then what is the first statement? Counter, variable, declaration, and initialization. So now counter has what value? 11. Counter has 11 value. Okay. Then printf numbers between 1 to 10, it will be displayed or not? Will this particular statement executes or not?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
It will execute, right? There is no condition to stop this one. It will execute, right? It will execute.
So it will execute.
Then the next statement here is do. Okay. Now we need to now understand the do while loop concepts. Do while loop concept means what? First phase is what? Do. Okay. Second step is what? Enter inside the this particular loop. First stage, look at here. First stage is do. Okay. Then second stage is what? Enter inside the loop. Means the statements within this open and close bracket have to be executed. So what are the statements here now? First statement is what? Printf. So what I have to print here? Printf counter. What counter stores? 11. So means what? 11 gets printed. Since it is a printf statement, 11 gets printed. Then counter plus plus. Counter plus plus means counter will get updated to the next value when I use it next time. Okay. Then while. Look into this diagram here. It has executed all the statements. Third step, that counter plus plus was also completed. Then the while. Okay. Then while we have a condition, right? So condition can have a two values, true or a false. Now look into the program here. What is condition? Counter less than or equals to 10. What is the value of counter? Is it 11 or 12?
12, sir.
It is
12, sir.
12.
12.
We have
12, sir.
implemented it. It is 12. So is that 12 less than or equal to 10? Is that true or false? False. False means now the counter has, the condition has given a false value. So what this particular do while should do? Should it go and then again execute these two statements, or it should terminate the execution?
So terminate the execution.
Do while, because the
Terminate the
condition is
execution.
false.
Terminate the
Yes, we have to terminate the do while loop here. So condition is false. So skip the, do not repeat those statements, come out of the do while. Correct? So it comes out the do while, and since I can add one more statement for your reference as printf, say tata bye bye. Okay, tata bye bye. Okay, fine. Now after printing the value 12, it prints tata bye bye. Right? Now this is what we learned now in the theory. But earlier we were in an impression that what it will do, it will not print anything. It will have errors. That concept we have. But we try to trace the program and we come to a, theoretically we just analyze that it will print 12 and then tata bye bye. Right? Let us check whether it does in the same way or not. Let us check it. I think that I have to compile it once again since I added one statement, then execute. Got stuck. Now, numbers between 1 to 10. Yes, we understood that it will print that statement. And then 11, right? That 11 was printed and then 11 was incremented to 12. 12 less than or equal to 10. That condition was false. So it skipped the execution and then at the end, tata bye bye was printed, was executed. Now pay attention and understand here. The first time when this particular condition was checked, was the result true or a false?
False, sir.
false.
Right? When the first time this particular while condition was checked here, the condition was, the result was false. Right? Even though the condition is false, let me call it to be a proper word. Even though the initial condition is false, even though the initial condition is false, has it executed these statements at least once? Yes or no? Even the initial condition was false, this do while got executed all these statements at least once. Understood? Right? Now, if I interchange this program from do while to the while loop. Okay. Now what I will do here is that I will change this one and I will write this while condition at the beginning. Okay. Now what I have done here, I just changed the looping structure here. Earlier it was do while. Now I change it to while condition. Okay, now let us run the program and execute. Now look at the output here. Numbers between 1 to 10 is printed. Yes. Then Tata bye bye. Correct? What is missing in this output? That
Yes. 11.
means,
11.
so what is the understanding out of this? Whenever the initial condition, we need to understand these terms here. Okay, let me write it here. Okay, you can see here. Initial condition. Is this understood basically what initial condition, what I'm talking about here? Initial condition means whether it is a while loop or a do while loop. There will be one condition, right? If it is a while loop, we mention that condition here at the beginning. In the do while loop, we mention the condition at the later stage, right? Initial condition means the first time when the condition is validated or the first time when the condition is checked. Okay, that what we call it to be a initial condition. Is that understood first? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, initial condition means inside the do while loop or inside the while loop, it has to check for the condition, right? The first time when the condition is checked or validated, that concept we call it to be a initial condition, or that phase or that stage we call it to be a initial condition. Depending upon this initial condition, if the initial condition is false, if the initial condition is false, do while loop will execute its body at least once. Is it true? Is this statement true? If
Yes,
the
sir.
initial condition itself is a false, right? At the beginning itself, the condition is the initial condition is a false, do while loop will execute its body at least once. Whereas on the contrary, the while loop will not execute its body. Will not execute its body if the initial condition is false. That is the main difference between the while and do while. Right? If you look into this program, initial condition is here. First time when the condition is validating, the condition is becoming what? False. And we know the concept of this one. When the condition becomes false in the while loop, it should skip this one. It should skip this one and go to the statements outside the loop, that is outside the while loop. So none of these statements will be executed whenever the initial condition is false. But when the same thing is applied to do while loop, like this, how we did earlier, right? I will take out this and I will write the do and then the while condition here. Okay, and let me put this in the comment section for your understanding. In this case, what happens? Initial condition is what? Is it true or a false? Initial condition is false. But has it executed these statements at least once? Yes. That is the main difference between while and do while. While, if the initial condition is false, it will not execute any of the statements of the while loop. Whereas in the do while loop, even though the initial condition is false, it will execute at least once all the statements which are there inside the body of that do while. Something is understood? Okay, it's like in one time you will not be able to understand completely, but at least anything is understood now. How the while loop and how we write the do while loop. Now what we are going to do in the next class is that the programs which we have written earlier, the same programs we'll try to convert into a do while and then write it. Okay, so that you will get an exposure to how we can write the do while loops. Mainly, we need to understand one thing. Do while loops are mostly used in a situation where we want to execute at least once Even though whatever is the condition, even the condition is true or a false, we have to execute it for one time, right? In such cases, we will make use of do while loop. Okay, those concepts we will learn eventually when we study or when we go further in the concepts. Okay, understood, students? Online students, is that understood?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay,
Yes,
put in your attendance
Yes, sir.
quickly. Now we called this do while to be exit controlled, right? Now think why we call it to be exit controlled. Controlled means what? The validation of the condition. Where is it happening? Is it happening at the entry point or is it happening at the exit point? Exit point. That's why we call this looping structure as exit controlled. Understood? Okay. We'll discuss further on this one in the next class.